Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, all on cutting through the AI hype in partnership with Track, a TravelNet solution. So my name is Priya and I will be your moderator for today's session. And I'm the editor of Short-Term Rentals, which is a B2B platform providing news and insights for the short-term rental industry. So today's webinar, as mentioned, is brought to you in partnership with Track, a TravelNet solution focused on delivering enterprise-grade property management solutions to short-term rental property managers. You can find further details about Track through the chat box at the bottom of your screen, where there'll be links to further information all on Track and who they are. But for now, please enjoy this video from the team, all on what they do.
Track really caught my eye as a developing partner, as a company that was going to be building more solutions and adding to their product more quickly.
We vetted out a lot of different companies 4 years ago when we moved over to Track, and looking at the features, it was robust and had the features that we needed.
Some of the things that we were doing in rates and some of the things that we were doing specifically in housekeeping and maintenance were just not scalable in Escapia. So when we moved over to Track, that was one of the main motivators, that and pricing. So we could take the property management company from 100 to 300 without adding too much payroll.
Also really liked Track's all-in-one philosophy as opposed to a best-in-class. We really like having everything all under one roof and Track, and it all works well together.
It just really helped make us more efficient and reduced what we were doing manually so that we could focus on our guests.
We love the flexibility that Track provides us, the horsepower, the ability to customize the different experiences for our customers. Track makes a lot of those things possible for us.
The flexibility in the reservation system itself is so awesome. The maintenance is amazing in Track. We can add pictures, we can add links, whatever's going on. The owners have communication from work orders. They have communications, documentation of everything going on.
I am confident to say that Track can do everything that everybody else can do, and we have the systems and processes around it to make a partner's life easier and to allow them to focus on the things that they enjoy focusing on more, which we hope is more on owner retention, owner growth, on-site operations, and let us really scale the more scalable parts of this business.
That is that open-ended philosophy of allowing us to develop our own solution within Track as opposed to having canned options.
I can confidently say, hey, we've been with different systems. We've been with Track for 5 years now. We've seen it grow as a company as well. And the more we go and test out different places, we see that, no, this is where we want to be. The reporting's good. The accounting's good.
I wouldn't say Track is a stagnant product. It's not the same product even from 2 years ago.
That's the mark of a software company that's moving quickly and fast, and that's what brought us to Track over Streamline ultimately.
Great. So just a few webinar guidelines from me before we jump in. So our webinar will feature a 45-minute Q&A with our panelists. And as mentioned, there is a chat bar at the bottom of your screens. So please do drop any questions that you might have there, and we will aim to get to them at the end. If you'd like to share a recording of this webinar, a recording will be sent out to your email within 24 hours. And you will also receive an insight summary on all of the key points covered in today's session. A short survey will also appear at the end of this webinar, so please do take a few moments to fill that out if you can. Okay, so cutting through the AI hype. So just for a bit of context and to set the scene here, there's been a huge amount of noise, I'd say, in the short-term rental sector over the last couple of years around new AI tools and innovations. And a lot of property managers are kind of feeling that pressure to adopt the latest products as quickly as possible. And we've spoken with industry leaders at TravelNet Solutions and others across the industry about cutting through the AI hype. And what's genuinely useful, what is just rebranded automation, and what property managers can safely kind of ignore for now, and what they should really be prioritizing. And today's session is all about kind of continuing that conversation and focusing on what actually is delivering value for property managers. Okay, so I'm going to introduce our lovely panel that we've got lined up here today. So if we can ask each of you to introduce yourselves from left to right, as we can see on screen. So Amber, welcome.
Good morning. My name is Amber Carpenter. I'm the VP of Product and Growth Strategy at Wheelhouse, and I've been in the industry about 25 years.
Perfect. Thanks, Amber. And Roy, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I'm the founder and CEO of AutoHost. My background is in cybersecurity. I started my career breaking into networks and applications, being a pen tester, and moving to defensive technologies, building AI systems. And yeah, I've been the CEO of AutoHost for the last 5 years, where we're building KYC scanning solutions powered by AI.
Perfect. Thanks, Roy. And David, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Priya. My name is David Stevens. I am the lead data scientist at Track. So most of my work is basically taking AI and machine learning and wiring into the product. So things like support ticket intelligence, customer review sentiment analysis, AI image tagging, captioning, or AI listing content generators. So most of my day is really trying to translate real operational pain for our customers and ship it into an actual product that people can use. Really, thank you for having us all here, Priya.
Perfect. Thank you, David. And again, all details on our speakers, LinkedIn and contact details are in the chat box. So please do connect and continue this conversation after the webinar as well. So if we get stuck into our conversation, I want to start off by talking about what is an agent, right? So Roy, if we start with you and we cut through the noise, cut through the buzzwords, what actually makes something an AI agent versus just a chat box with a database access?
Good question to start with. Let's start with definitions. An agent is a software program that's capable of perceiving its environment, reasoning, making decisions, and acting on all of that to achieve a specific goal. Chatbots is more of a description of how you interact with a certain system, whether it's an AI agent or not. Typical chatbots these days are systems that read documentation and generate new text based on your initial question or query. Typically, that's the primary purpose for chatbots, or escalating to a human when someone gets stuck or says, I need support or I need sales. That's the extent of chatbots. Now, agents can go a lot further. There's also a big tension between consent and agency. So an agent, by definition, means that it's a software program that gets agency so it can make decisions and act on its own. But in order for an agent to do its job properly, it needs access to a lot of relevant context. And that usually comes at a cost of privacy. More information about customers if you're trying to answer business questions, or access to all of the customer data if the customer is asking the agent to help it with a task, guest data, and others. So in order for an agent to work well, it needs a lot of information and the right type of information. And our tools, so things to discuss soon, but a lot of our tools and systems are just not built to allow this level of autonomy and decision-making without visibility controls and keeping humans in the loop, or stopping agents from doing things we don't want to. So, and a chatbot will never be able to do that because it's a fixed program that's supposed to provide quick support and documentation for customers.
Thanks, Roy. And I guess, you mentioned, that discrepancy between the chat box and the agent. So do you think there is some kind of misconception there as well, like with property managers and the understanding of those definitions when we talk about agents, or when vendors speak to property managers about agents and what that really could mean for their businesses?
Okay, there's a lot of ways to answer that, I'm going to initially say that there are five different types of agency or levels of autonomy. The first one, level one, being assistive technologies like ChatGPT drafting you an email. The next level is a supervised level two, where the AI executes, the human approves. Level three is conditional. So the AI does some work, but once it needs to perform a more risky task, let's say sending an email autonomously, then that's where a human might be brought in to approve it. Next level is high autonomy, so the AI does almost everything, and the last one is full autonomy, which we don't have any products or companies out there that provide this level of autonomy. Most companies these days are on levels 1 to 2. In most cases, very few are actually providing us level 3 tools where the AI does most of the work and beyond. So a lot of the hype is on agentic systems, and what they're trying to imply is that the AI will do everything for you, when in fact it's pretty much far from the truth, because there's a lot of tuning and information collection that you need to do. So if you don't have a good internal documentation in your company, SOPs, then adopting AI agents will be more difficult for you, or companies that make these promises will not be able to deliver on them because you don't have a lot of the necessary human instructions that the AI can utilize.
Interesting. Thank you, Roy. And I know that, so Gartner says that AI agents will hit peak hype mid-2025. And I know that you have pushed back on this. So I just wanted to get your thoughts there before we come to Amber and David to hear their thoughts on where this lands, and if we're really past that peak hype, or if we are just getting started, if you will.
Definitely in the early stages of the curve. We have a lot more to go. And I know there's a lot of people that say this is a bubble. Sure, there is a bubble, but it's not a bubble like the dot-com bubble, where a lot of companies were created, but they didn't really provide any value. These days, AI, although there is a bubble, but it's not a bubble that's about to burst. It's a bubble that's driving more innovation and investment. And those of us who are working with AI, and David and Amber will confirm or deny, my team, my company, and our customers definitely see value. And that's where the feedback loop is really coming in. So a lot more to climb in the graph, and a lot more to look forward to in AI innovation.
Thank you. And David, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so what Roy was talking about earlier was we're talking about this Gartner hype cycle. So I love referencing this because you can see the peak of the Gartner hype cycle is the peak of inflated expectations. Now, let's just be clear before we even go into details. The Gartner hype cycle is broken up into 5 different sections. And right now we're at the peak of inflated expectations for AI agents. What does that actually mean? Well, Gartner hype cycle doesn't predict winners. It talks about where expectations and reality differ. That's it. So when AI agents are at the peak of that, what that means is that the wording is confident, the roadmaps are optimistic, the demos are flawless. And that's the kind of thing that we have to be careful of, because right now, Roy was mentioning earlier, is there's a lot of agent washing. They're kind of taking, some companies are taking existing software and now just calling it an agent. They're saying, well, this was our chatbot, now it's an agent. Where actually, as a matter of fact, it may not be an agent. It's just a kind of an LLM that's augmented, that has access to your data. And that data that Roy was mentioning earlier, that's something that we call that the knowledge base. So what's important is to understand that we have a separate layer for knowledge. so that the chatbot or that the agent has access to that data. Now, agents, I'm not anti-agent, I'm more pro-outcome. And most of the time, what we see is some people are in the market and they have an agent as their tool and they start looking for a problem. So if that's the right tool for the job, by all means. But most of what we're seeing and most of what these consulting companies are outputting is that maybe agents aren't really the right tool for the job, or maybe there's brittle workflows underneath. So, like I said, Gartner doesn't predict winners. And when we're talking about this hype cycle, they're actually saying that by the end of 2027, by the end of next year, 40% of these agentic solutions are going to be canceled. That's not because they're bad or they're the wrong solution. It's because they're not focused on the right problem and they're not using the right tools for the job. So I think this buzzword of 2025, it was around this time last year or December 2024, Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, said that 2025 was going to be the year of the agent. And then everybody came out with an agent. And I think that's very good because we're going in the right direction. The hype has definitely hit its peak. But now I think what we have to do is we have to create the systems and the knowledge base in order for them to carry it forward into something that will be useful. Because right after the peak of inflated expectations, if you look at that chart, there's the trough of disillusionment. And that's when enterprises who have bought into agents start to realize that maybe these agents aren't what they originally purchased or what they thought they would be. But then after that, the good side about a trough is that there are two sides and they slope up. Then after that, that's when you see productivity.
Interesting. Thank you, David. So we're really kind of entering that peak now and seeing what we can do, carrying into 2026. So Amber, what are your thoughts here?
My thoughts on this is actually that we're not quite at the peak. I think that, I agree with a lot of both David and Roy's statements, but what really resonated with me was Roy's comments around most tooling today is really those level 1 and level 2 agents. And so to me, where we really get progress is getting into those level 3 agents. And when you take away some of the tech speak, what I haven't seen really roll out yet, and we're close in some tooling, is like, how do we actually take some of the workflows, right? When you think about it and we break this down as what are the workflows that take up so much of our time in the short-term rental space? What are the workflows that are difficult? So for example, you have a guest that comes in and they have a complaint, right? There's a maintenance issue at the property. Your system already knows, what the amount of money is that the homeowner, approval level is at. What systems out there can take it, discern the guest complaint, write up the work order, and then, level 3 is, knowing, okay, well, this work order is likely less than the homeowner approval level, so we're going to go ahead and get it scheduled. That level of workflow enablement hasn't quite come to fruition yet. And so to me, when we really get to market these workflows that automate such arduous tasks that we have that are sometimes multiple systems, multiple roles within your agency to get it done, I think that's when people are really going to get excited about it. I think there's when I think about the phase that we're in, it's discovery to me, that we're still discovering how we're going to use AI agents to really change our daily lives.
Interesting. Thank you.
I think maybe after the AI era, the Gartner graph might have to change its shape. Because we'll say I don't think the dip is going to be as significant as the typical hype charts show.
Yeah, well, and Amber, I just wanted to pick back up on something that David mentioned just a moment ago on that concept of agent washing. So obviously coming from that product background, what are your thoughts here? Are vendors kind of slapping that word agent on basic automation? What are some examples that you've seen, and what would be your advice to property managers when it comes to spotting those fakes, if you will?
I think there's a lot of creative product marketing teams out there for sure that are slapping agents labels on a lot of chatbots. I think that's the most prolific example where you have a chatbot that is just referencing a knowledge base, and they're calling that an agent. And so the best way that, again, going back to kind of that keyword workflows, because if you think about the heart of who we are in short-term rentals, we're operators, right? At the end of the day, we're operators, and operators mean that most of our daily work, regardless of your role, has a workflow to it or multiple workflows to it. So I think the best way to cut through the agent washing is to say, asking them, what systems does this read and write to? What are the permissions? It goes back to those 5 levels that Roy was mentioning, but, is it autonomous? Does it have to ask for permission? Does it take any action? Does it enable a workflow, or does it just give you a response? Does it just take your question and give you an educated response based on data that it has access to?
So I guess that would be the red flag that you'd be looking out for. Is it really
Yes.
utilizing the
Right.
data you've given it?
I would also ask
Correct.
them, what adoption have they seen from other customers they have right now?
And could you expand on that further, Roy?
How many users on average in their existing customers use the product?
Mm-hmm.
That'll help you to understand, is it intuitive? Is it just really good sales and marketing, or does the product actually deliver and people use it daily?
Interesting. Thank you both. And David, just bringing you in here. If we think about kind of beneath the marketing and we look into the foundations of agents and how they work, why do structured data, memory, and permissions kind of matter more than which AI model that you choose?
Yeah, great question. So I was referencing earlier this knowledge layer. That is critical here. Why? Well, before we even get into why that's essential, everybody is racing to get the next model out. There's at the time of recording, there's Gemini 3, there's GPT 5.2, we've got the latest flawed models. There are so many models that are out there, and which one do we choose? Which one's better? Which one's better for this case? And there's so many questions. But why is that knowledge layer so important? Well, it doesn't really matter like how, if you're using the cutting edge model, if it doesn't have access to your data, if it doesn't have access to that knowledge layer, which really should be something that is repetitively, regularly improving itself, understanding the questions that came in, how it answered them, whether or not they're right in order to self-reinforce. Well, then that model is basically just a very smart model taking a guess on your data. So that's why that knowledge layer is so important. I'll give you an example. Let's just say somebody wants a late checkout, right? So somebody decides to send a text and talk to your chatbot, ask about a late checkout. Well, they can actually, if it has access to maybe some of your data or late checkouts in the past, it may say, yeah, there's a late checkout at 4 p.m. or that's totally fine. However, if that knowledge layer says that, no, we actually have somebody checking in at 3 p.m., well, there's the conflict. And we need to get housekeeping in there in order to make the beds and make sure everything's nice and clean. So that's why this is critical, is because you may actually have hallucinations. Now, we're not talking hallucinations where it's just off the wall, out in left field. These are hallucinations where it's confidently incorrect. So that's why having that knowledge layer is so important. And that's why, okay, which model is it using? I think we're asking the wrong questions there. It's more about how does this integrate into my PMS so that it can help me succeed and avoid hallucinations. It's not going to completely cut them out, but we want to mitigate them as much as possible.
Interesting.
If I was going to just succinctly say that the reason we also see these types of hallucinations is because the models are designed to be helpful. And when you ask an agent to do something for you, it tries to do it, but it doesn't have the right information. It'll do its best attempt to still accomplish that work, even if it means making up information. And that's a big reason why we see these hallucinations.
And Roy, just building on that, when we think about systems, and we then on the flip side, think about what's enabling them. I know that you've built systems using Anthropic's MCP, Model Context Protocol. So for property managers that haven't heard of it, what does this unlock for AI agents that might not have been possible before?
Everything that David mentioned. So to give agents the right information in the right time, information about your company, information about your guests, about the reservations, information from your PMS. That's what MCP protocol is for. Think of it as an API for agents, or a way for autonomous AI systems to access information or make changes to the world, like searching flight information and then booking a ticket. So there's information search, but then there's also taking actions. So that's what the MCP protocol was designed to do. It's a terrible protocol. It was designed by people that have never designed computer protocols before. Feels like it was designed by an intern that wasn't even the smartest intern, that was tasked with creating this initial protocol. I am not the smartest person, not the dumbest person. I tried a year ago. I think I spent like 2 weekends trying to get MCP to work in a serverless environment. Good luck trying to do that. So some of the decisions they made kind of lock you down to very specific design choices. So I'm going a bit too technical, I think, for our dear audiences. But MCP is supposed to solve that problem of how do I connect more tools and more information to my AI without writing a whole lot of code. Now, there's a big paradigm shift. We're kind of looking at, instead of giving AIs a bunch of these connections, these MCP connections, so they can search Expedia, my PMS, and so on, we're moving towards giving them skills. So a skill would be something that the AI agent will only kind of, let's use a file analogy. So I have my director with a whole bunch of files, skills, each file is a skill. As the agent, when someone is asking me to do something like check someone in a week from now, wants to do an early check-in. So the agent will know which skill to load. It will read the document. The document gives it a step-by-step instructions on how to perform that specific task, and potentially maybe giving it tools to do it. What this gives AI agents, and that's the 2026, the big changes we're going to be seeing, is that it's going to make the agents a lot less prone to hallucinations, going off on a tangent, and essentially not completing the main task that it was asked to perform. So that's what MCPs are, and they are going to be changing a lot, and potentially supplanted by different methods. So, yeah.
Nice. And so I suppose what you're describing there is a level of autonomy given to AI agents when it comes to completing tasks and really utilizing the data that they're learning from. So Amber, just bringing you in here, in hospitality workflows, what does autonomy realistically look like today?
I mean, today I think there's not a tremendous amount of autonomy that's occurring, meaning like end-to-end workflows that are executed without any human interaction. Yeah. And to be honest with you, there may never be, right? I'm not here to say that there will be or there won't be, but some examples of workflows that I don't think will happen anytime soon are anything to do with money, right? Refunds. I don't think that anyone is going to allow a system to autonomously refund a guest based on a guest complaint. I would say at least in the next 12 to 18 months, that's probably not happening. But where I see a lot of opportunity, again, is those day-to-day workflows where you can take, not just get the review from the guest and provide an automated response, but provide an automated response, generate the work orders, email the owner for approval if it goes above their threshold for investment in maintenance work orders. Let the property manager know all at the same time. Like, imagine how long and how many emails or Slack messages that takes today to get that executed and to go from the guest complaint to the work order to the resolution by the maintenance worker in the field. And so I think those types of workflows are on the horizon and are very close to being solved with just a couple approval points, kind of that level 3 that Roy was talking about. And all of those different touch points. And just to add on to what Roy was talking about, he and I had spoken about this briefly the other day with David. But I think of MCPs as like, SOAP APIs, or, the first version of APIs out in the world that were just absolutely pathetic and so slow. And I do think that they're going to evolve, but that's actually the next layer that I'm thinking of, is that, MCPs or their cousin, whatever they evolve to when they're when the intern has let go of the code, are enabling different AI agents from different tools to speak to each other. So say you use your PMS has an agent, but you use a third-party tool for your housekeeping and maintenance. MCPs are that layer that let them each agent talk to each other's agent, right? So that's another reason why I don't think that we've hit kind of the trough of hype, or that we're about to be in there. Because once your agents can talk to another agent, that's really, and you think of, the tech stack of any of our customers, I think that's really where these workflows, hit their superpowers.
One thing, if I can, Priya, see, this is why I love the two of you on this call, because you can hear it, right? I mean, think about our audience right now. They're property managers, they're working on their business, they're trying to find out, how can we really cut through the hype? We just heard it, right? Roy and Amber, and they've worked with MCP, Model Context Protocol. They understand its nuances. They understand just how brittle it is, just how to work with it, how to make something that, like, even how to even force themselves through the difficulty of it. And they're still seeing where it's falling short. And I think this is one way that, people on this call, the audience or listening to this podcast, will understand, okay, this is how we can understand where there's hype. So when there's somebody, if there's a vendor, if there's somebody who is trying to sell you MCP, we use MCP. Oh, look at this. We use it. And a Model Context Protocol. That's our lifeblood. That's really important to us. This is where you know that, okay, this just may be hype right there. So, because if you are trying to build something with it, there is a difficulty to it. So this is why I appreciate that. And thank you for letting me interject.
Thank you, David. And Roy, just bring you in here. I know Amber outlined a few instances where we're not seeing AI take on that autonomy because of the risk that can be involved in doing so. So, in your view, when an AI agent makes a mistake, who's accountable, and how should property managers approach liability as well?
What if I told you that you can today make an AI agent that is, by the eyes of the law, is a legal entity? In that situation, neither the company that made the AI, the property management company that licensed the software, neither of them are liable. How do you do that? Well, all you have to do is register a corporation. Corporations, by the law, are legal entities. So once your AI agent is part of that company, or you register the agent, that's it. It's a legal entity that is separate from the company. Has anyone done that? Not to my knowledge, but possible to do. So bottom line is, it all happens. What matters is, do you have a good lawyer? And how much does the judge understand AI technology? That's ultimately what matters on who's responsible. We're in uncharted waters, and legal precedents are the ones that are going to be dictating and telling us what happens in this type of scenario. The US legal system is precedent-based, like most other legal systems. So that's where we're at. And ultimately, yeah, just make sure if you have chatbots, like, Air Canada last year was in the news for the chatbot authorizing a refund, and this becoming essentially a big court case in Canada because the chatbot was representing the airline, but the airline said no to the refund that they were pressing to get. So yeah, not a direct answer, but that's the truth.
It's still such muddy waters, I guess, when it comes to figuring those things out, especially when it comes to risk. And just on that topic, David, as well, what examples of fully autonomous AI use cases in hospitality remain high risk or maybe even premature?
Yeah, it's kind of like what Amber was mentioning earlier. Anything when finances or when money is involved, like refunds, chargebacks, compensation, that sort of thing. Even things like if we are thinking high risk and we are thinking even higher than that, even if it's something like maybe like an emergency, maybe or even like a safety situation, like I don't know, you send a quick message saying somebody broke into the Airbnb and stole all my items. That I think a person needs to talk to a person. These are rare, but these are also very high stakes. So that's when error just can't happen. There can't be any error. It has to be right every single time. And I think speaking to a real person who will be able to then contact the authorities, in a situation that I just gave, that's critical. I really still think that humans need to be kept in control. They need to be kind of kept within the loop, but also on top of the loop. When we're getting down into hospitality, we don't need to be checking every single communication, because some of them is just such low risk. But I think in high risk situations, like I just mentioned, that's still critical.
Yeah, definitely. We need that human element to manage those kind of high risk situations. Yeah. Absolutely. And Amber, just bringing you into the conversation here. Sometimes as well, property managers can learn from those instances where the situation just didn't work. So, what are some of the ways that you've seen an AI agent fail, or maybe even overpromise in terms of hospitality products, and what should that kind of teach property managers as well?
I can tell you a personal story that I had. I had to really think hard about this question. But this was about a year ago. So hopefully things have gotten better. And it was actually with United Airlines. And I was in San Francisco for a concert for my anniversary. And we had something come up with one of our kids. We have 5, so it happens all the time. And we had to change our ticket. And so I really would do it. I'm one of those people, I'm 46, but I'd rather do anything than have to get on the phone and get in a phone tree. I'd rather do anything but that. So I used their chat, which I'd used multiple times before successfully, which if any of you have used it, it turns into a text message on your phone. And I was explaining, we're here for a concert, but I need to change my ticket, et cetera, et cetera. And at this time, they did not disclose that this was an agent. They just called it like Lisa, right? They just said, Lisa is on the line for you. And it was a nightmare. It was a complete nightmare. And I suspected very quickly. And then after the mess it made, I realized it was an agent that they were testing. And I was just lucky to be on the other end of that. But it basically kept talking to me about how the band name change was their favorite band. It actually rebooked my tickets on the wrong date. It made a complete mess, and I ended up having to call and fix the entire debacle. But it literally spent 30 minutes saying, oh, let me fix that for you. Let me get this booked for you, just like an agent would, like a human agent would. And so I kept actually saying back to it, like, I don't know a band name change. I don't know what you're like. I just didn't know I was talking to an agent at first. And it kept saying like, oh, you should listen to their music. It's great. It was the most ridiculous conversation. Ended up booking us on the wrong dates. I had to call and get it fixed. And so to me, one of the biggest one of the things I think, we haven't talked about is kind of the ethics here, right? And so to me, one of the biggest mistakes is not to disclose that you're not talking to a human, right? And I know that that's maybe not something that everyone on the panel agrees with me about, or maybe you guys do, but I think that that's one of the ways you mitigate risk, is to help people understand that they're not talking to a human in case things go sideways, that they know to ask and prompt for, can you get me a human agent?
And say at the bottom, AI agents make mistakes.
Yeah, just like humans. But I think it can get pretty convoluted pretty quickly when they start to hallucinate.
Exactly. That entire story could have played out with a human agent, but any person working in that organization can walk over to that call center agent and explain to them what they did wrong and what they missed. But when it's software, now very few people in the organization can actually tell what happened and how to fix it. And that's the gap that we're seeing right now. And the scale, right? One human agent can make mistakes, but the AI agents can make those same mistakes thousands of times in an hour.
Especially in this kind of learning stage that I think we're kind of seeing as well. And Amber, I know you mentioned a few instances earlier, but could you go into a bit more detail about what some of the low risk kind of non-agentic AI use cases that might be delivering real and measurable value in hospitality right now?
I think there are some really great tools to help you with that allow for you to approval workflows, right? Kind of that level 2, where they are helping you with responding to reviews, a lot of tooling around guest communications, right? They're writing the email for you. There's tooling right now that is helping you understand your data, although I haven't seen a tremendous amount of tools that are then helping you take action on that data or make changes. I've seen people kind of dip their toes into that. But I would say that's where I'm seeing the most tooling out there that is kind of on the cusp. Again, I think where the opportunity lies is to then take it to that next step, to where it can actually, schedule the work order. It checks for the approval threshold of the homeowner. It notifies the homeowner. It does all those steps that are required in that workflow.
Thank you, Amber. And David, do you have anything that you'd like to add to those points?
I mean, Amber pretty much nailed it. Review summarization, drafting responses. These are the kind of things. These are kind of like the not so exciting. It's kind of like the boring back end stuff. But that's where we've seen that our customers have saved themselves hours throughout the week, or like collectively days throughout the month. And that's where you really see success. Like, yeah, I understand that some of the front end stuff where it's kind of like the fun, exciting, I'm using agents, but really where actually customers are seeing success are just like what Amber mentioned. Even creating content, your content generation, not just saying write me a listing description, but writing the listing description for all of your different channels, because there's always these nuances for each one of those channels. Airbnb, Verbo, HVMI, even your own channel, so you're on your own website, short descriptions, long descriptions, you name it. Then you have kind of other things like even image tagging or captioning. These are low risk but they're high return on investment. Because what are they doing? They're saving your team members time, right? Even when we get into, as an example, some kind of financial situation or chargeback responses. We just released a product for chargeback guidance drafting. So when a chargeback comes in, somebody says, "Hey, I didn't put this in my credit card," or maybe they're upset with the stay, so they say, "I just want my money back." That sort of thing is scary for a property manager. But instead, we have taken all of this historical data on how to respond to a chargeback and drafted it. It's not sending it. It's not acting in place. That's the important thing. Property manager is still in control. But that high stress situation that may only happen maybe 3 times a year, or maybe even just 3 times a month, depending on how much you're actually working towards it, that really relieves the stress. And then, of course, there's another project on which we're working, things like generative engine optimization. Some people call it, answer engine optimization, so AEO as opposed to GEO. Everybody knows what SEO is, but generative engine optimization is basically where you're restructuring your data on the back end in order to make it more visible to agents, to AI agents that are searching for those listings. So when a chatbot is actually, or when you're using an agent like ChatGPT and using the search function in order to search for listings in the area for, let's just say, a 3-bedroom house with mountain views and a hot tub and an EV charger. Well, that's very specific, right? Maybe if you were to Google that, you might get 100 different responses, and you don't really want to sift through it. So you send it off to an AI agent. Well, that generative engine optimization, that data structure on the back end, is what agents use in order to understand and to read the data. Not much like a human would, but it's restructured for AI agents. So those are places where we've actually seen the return on investment, which is a real, actual measurable figure. And that's the most important thing, to actually measure return on investment. We get a very high ROI on the projects that I've just named.
Thank you, David. And just switching gears slightly here, as we kind of come to the end of our discussion. I know we always see the topic prop up in AI conversations, but I think a lot of people are interested in knowing how AI is going to kind of transform the workplace and hospitality as well. So, Amber, from your view, kind of within product and growth strategies, you know, are AI agents kind of coming for hospitality roles? What roles do you think are at risk? And how can we kind of, I guess, adapt our mindsets to be AI proof in a sense?
Well, let me start with the fact that I'm an eternal optimist. And so for me, I think roles are changing. I don't think roles are necessarily completely going away. I think we've been at this place many, many times, at least in my lifetime, with the advent of, computers being affordable really changed how we do business. The internet, right, being accessible changed how we do business. Cell phones changed how we do business. One of kind of the biggest changes in our industry, and I think we don't talk about this much, is the advent of keyless entry locks, right? We all used to have front desks. And a guest would have to come and check in, and you'd have front desk agents that would, give them their key and talk to them about the property and all the rules. And that evolved. It didn't go away. Those people became guest service agents that are helping those guests, behind a different maybe kind of desk. Maybe the guests aren't coming in anymore, but they are interacting with those guests from, chat and emails and apps, inboxes, unified inboxes. And so I think there's going to be an evolution of roles. I also think it's like any other technology. Those of us that are eager to learn and try new things are going to survive, right? The change. And those of us that resist and say, like, this isn't a thing, that, this will all just go away and nothing is going to change. I think that's the roles that are going to suffer. The individuals that are going to suffer more so than the roles as a whole.
Thank you, Amber, for that balanced, fairly optimistic conclusion there. And just my last final question to each of you. So, David, if we start with you, when it comes to kind of evaluating AI vendors, what question do you think that property managers should be asking to kind of cut through the hype?
Yeah, there are a lot of questions, but I'll only give one. I'll save the rest for people on the team. It's already been fielded, so it shouldn't really come as any surprise. But the main question that I think property managers need to ask these AI vendors is this: what happens when your AI is wrong, and who is accountable for that? Full stop. That's, I think, the best way to put it, because if people start dancing around that topic, if they can't answer that, well, that shows that they're not really selling. They're selling more confidence theater, and that, I think, is a red flag.
So I suppose considering the all-around risk before jumping into what you're being
told. Yeah, exactly. And I also use another analogy. It's kind of like if you have a Ferrari, right, with an amazingly fast engine, but there are no brakes, I would not get in that Ferrari. It doesn't matter. You have to be able to know when it stops, when somebody else can take control. Even with the steering wheel, you have to be able to put in those guardrails so it doesn't just fly off the road.
Nice one. Thank you, David. And Roy, what are your thoughts here?
In the beginning of the conversation, I mentioned you should ask your vendor what adopts other customers. But to answer your question right now, I would say that don't ask them. Beyond the normal questions you want to ask, focus on try to remember that it's a very fast changing field, AI and AI tooling. So you have to be ready for changes in the product, how it works. Maybe even 1 week something works, the next week something breaks, the third week it morphed into a different feature. AI costs and hidden costs. So models, tokens, running those AI models, the way that companies kind of make it profitable for themselves is by giving you only access to the cheapest models that they can access that can still sort of do the job well. The problem is that it's the expensive models that can actually reduce the amount of errors and mistakes AI makes significantly. But then the vendor selling you the AI solution will not make any money. So now you have problems. You're getting like the cheapest model, but you have to contend with more issues and more problems with the product itself. So these are the things to keep in mind. As of course small, but I'll leave it at that. So you gotta be you gotta have a team that can adapt and is willing to adopt AI products and with everything that comes with it.
Perfect. Thank you, Roy. And Amber, coming to you.
On this one, I actually have a different flavor of David's answer. I agree, and I really resonate with what he said. I think for me, it's that you have to ask when the model gets it wrong, how do I fix it? How do I retrain it? Is there tooling to help me intervene quickly so that it doesn't keep making that mistake, right? And it's not just that you have to put in a bug and wait for them to retrain the model on their side, and that there's, is there transparency and tooling to give you the ability, just like Roy's example earlier, where in a call center, you could go to that agent who had made the mistake and retrain them quickly and let them know, how do I intervene? How am I part of the process to help retrain when the model's off base?
Nice one. Thank you, Amber. And that actually brings us to the end of all of our questions. But I want to say a massive thank you to all of our panelists for all of those really interesting insights. So thank you, Amber, Roy, and David, and of course to Track as well. So I just have a few closing slides before we end, but please do connect with all of our speakers. As mentioned, their contact details are in that chat box below. So let's carry on the conversation after the webinar ends.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. So our webinar is scheduled for the 24th of March, and we'll be looking at experiences and whether they are really the next revenue frontier. So I hope to see you all there for our next one. And tickets are live for the shorties. Please don't forget to submit your entries. All submissions are free to enter, and entries do close mid-Feb, so make sure you don't miss that deadline. Video there on the shorties. And if you're interested in working with us, then do reach out to our head of growth, whose contact details are on screen. Sam is also running a quick webinar on Thursday, and details for joining that are in the chat box as well. So please do check that out if you're interested. And here are David's details as well if you'd like to learn more about Track. And again, just a final big thank you from me. Please do enjoy this video from the IHM team.
At IHM, we believe in the power of connection. We exist to inspire, to inform, and to unite decision makers who are shaping the future of hospitality and real estate. Our why is simple. We believe this industry thrives when people and ideas come together. And we're here to make that happen. So how do we do it? We publish 4 leading multimedia brands, each a trusted voice in its sector. We blend intelligent content, curated events, and a strong community into everything we do, making it easy, accessible, and genuinely useful. From online engagement to face-to-face connection, we are known for being insightful, collaborative, and refreshingly human. We host world-class events, panel discussions, podcasts, award ceremonies, and webinars designed to spark ideas, drive conversation, and create impact. With over 62,000 monthly web visitors, 55,000 email subscribers, and 69,000 social media connections. Our reach is deep and our community is active. We're partnered with the biggest names in hospitality, and we'd love to connect with you. So whether you're looking to grow your visibility, meet the right people, or understand where the market's heading, read, watch, listen, and me. Do it all with IHM.